If Eren had the desire to destroy the world, why does he say he tried to prevent that future? Could Eren have been manipulated by Ymir? So guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon that talks the most about Attack on Titan on YouTube, and you're on my channel. Remembering that some things are interpretative, so it's normal for you to have a different interpretation than mine, and another important thing is that some topics that I'm going to cover in this video complement others, so I recommend that you watch the full video before commenting that I don't understand the ending or that my explanation is incomplete, okay? Was destroying 80% of the world's population Eren's or Ymir's desire? It was always Eren's wish, and Eren himself says this to Armin. Ymir never necessarily had this intention. She just supported Eren's will and his plan to punish the world, as a way of going against the family's wishes. Real, and that's why she decided to give her power to Eren instead of obeying Zeke. If Eren had the desire to destroy the world, why does he say that he tried to prevent that future? Because the Eren who tried other possibilities was the Eren of the past, probably the Eren of Season 3, and he tries to change things to prevent the deaths, but according to what he himself tells Armin, there was no way to stop it, since there was no matter what he did, the future always culminated in that same result, because that was already predestined, and everything Eren tried to do to prevent it would only be helping it to happen. And yes, Eren knew that in the future he would voluntarily decide to wipe out 80% of humanity, but just because he knows that he himself will do something terrible in the future doesn't mean he has the power to stop it. Why can't the future be changed? Because of the concept of the future itself. For a vision of the future to be a vision of the future, then by definition it needs to happen. If the outcome of the story were different from what Eren saw in his memories of the future, we would have to assume that what he saw was actually not the future, and this would go against what has already been established by the author. There is also the concept of alternative timelines, in which a decision can change the course of history, generating an alternative future. But Attack on Titan does not work with alternative timelines, since narratively speaking, there's only the timeline that we follow, therefore, the future cannot be changed. How did Zeke manage to free some Titans from Ymir's control? For the rumbling to happen, Eren needed to merge with Zeke. Zeke was basically the key for Eren to be able to control the colossal Titans, since Eren does not have royal blood and needed Zeke to have that power. Zeke was conscious in the paths, and if he has royal blood and is necessary for the rumbling to work, we can assume that his consciousness had a certain autonomy within that transformation of Eren, which allowed him to awaken the other allies that were inside of the paths, and also expose himself so that Levi could kill him, stopping the rumbling. Who was the ram-shaped titan that was helping Armin? It was Tom Xaver's Bestial Titan, a character who was the Bestial Titan before Zeke. He played baseball with Zeke and gave him his glasses. His Titan form had not been shown before. He just says that his Titan is not. It was very useful in battles, and at the time everyone was curious to know which animal and Titan it was based on, and now we know. Remembering that the Bestial Titan always transforms into the animal with which the user has the greatest emotional connection, and for Tom, that animal was a ram. How did Mikasa help free Ymir in the end? In Eren's conversation with Armin, Eren says that Mikasa was the person Ymir was waiting for, to free her from her suffering, so Armin questions why Ymir chose Mikasa, and Eren replies that this is something that only Ymir knows. Well, this is something that was not so clear, and leaves room for interpretation. I believe that Ymir bonded with Mikasa, as a result of the bond that Mikasa had with Eren, and she chose Mikasa, because she was also a person who always loved someone, and that someone always made her suffer, since Ymir was always trapped to King Friatz for love, and even though it was an abusive and toxic love that made her suffer, she never managed to free herself, always being a slave to the royal family, even after his death. This caused Ymir to create the Paths, which is a kind of cluster of memories, where everyone's consciousness is interconnected, and she did this to satisfy her emotional need, and her need to always be connected and somehow together, of her daughters and everyone she cared about. And that's why everyone's memory is preserved in this place. This is very sad to think about if you imagine the paths as a kind of afterlife, in which people who die do not have the chance to rest, remaining eternally conscious within the paths, so that they could remain together with Ymir. When Mikasa makes the decision to kill Eren, even though she loves him, Ymir realizes that it is the decision she should have made, but couldn't, and the episode even shows a scene from what is probably Ymir's imagination, showing that she should having let the king die. Instead of sacrificing herself for him, she should have thought of her daughters, but she couldn't, and upon seeing Mikasa make the decision to kill Eren even though she loved him, Ymir decides to permanently free herself from all the bonds that they linked it to the royal family and all the Udians. Therefore, she decides to let her consciousness be free from this dimension that she herself created, and undo the paths, and thus the consciousnesses of all the Udians who were eternally trapped were also freed, and everyone could rest in peace. How could Ymir be freed in the end if Eren had already done it? Eren didn't free Ymir, he just made her have the courage to stop being a member of the royal family, which is something she was never able to do, and she saw in Eren a chance to do that, and that helped in her release. It was a first step towards this, but it did not actually free her, since to free herself, in addition to stopping being a slave, she had to detach herself from her emotional ties and leave everything behind, and that is much more difficult. If Ymir could predict the future, she already knew what Mikasa's decision would be, so why didn't she free herself sooner? I believe she didn't know, and that was probably one of the reasons she chose Mikasa. Mikasa is only half Eldian, since she is also an Ackerman, and for that reason Ymir probably couldn't predict her future, since the Ackermans they are immune to several things, including the power to manipulate memories that was used by the royal family. So when Mikasa makes the decision to kill Eren, seeing that was so impactful for Ymir, which made her make the decision to free herself. Were Mikasa's headaches caused by Ymir? Yes, Ymir was always watching Mikasa, and for that reason, Mikasa always had headaches. This is said at the end of the episode. Why do the Titans disappear at the end? They disappear because Ymir undid the paths, so all the connection that the Eldians had with Ymir was severed, so they saw ordinary humans, without the ability to transform or be transformed into a Titan. What was Eren's vision with Mikasa? That was a moment that they experienced within the paths, remembering that time within the path does not obey time in the real world, so apparently they lived for years in that place, within this dimension of the paths, which was the lifetime they had left to Eren if he had enjoyed his remaining time of life with Mikasa, and in the end, after running out of time, Eren dies. One thing that is implied in this part is that before dying within the paths, in this life with Mikasa, Eren probably told her where his head was so that Mikasa could kill him in the real world, since in the end she probably recovered all the memories of these 4 years, since she knew exactly where Eren's head was, and so she manages to kill him. What was Eren's vision with Armin? It was something similar to what Eren and Mikasa experienced. Eren and Armin were able to spend a lot of time living this parallel life within the paths, probably many years, and it was there that they became even more friends, to the point where Armin wanted to share it with Eren. The guilt for what happened. And just like it was with Mikasa, this whole moment passed before the final battle, while Armin was still on the ship. In the scene where he talks to Annie, Armin didn't have the memories of what happened there, he probably just remembered later, when Eren was already dead. Was Eren's plan useless? In practical terms, yes, it was useless, since Eren's idea was to leave the world on equality with Parity Island, so that the island could survive, and the remaining people could live in peace. But in the episode itself it is said and shown that the wars continued, and that eventually in the future, Parity is attacked and completely destroyed. I think Eren himself was aware that he wouldn't be able to end wars or anything like that. That's a very naive ideal, and it's a very obvious conclusion for you to imagine that conflicts would eventually continue. The truth is that Eren just wanted to take revenge on the world and kill people. Does Eren turn into a dove at the end? Although we have a lot of cool memes, seriously, there are some very good ones. What I can say is that no, Eren does not turn into a dove. That is just a representation of the idea of freedom, since freedom is one of the themes of Attack on Titan. Does Mikasa die in the end? Yes, in fact she lives her whole life, as shown in the scene that takes place during the credits, in which we see Mikasa getting married to someone, having children and grandchildren and building a family, and in the end, she dies at an old age, probably from natural causes, but still wearing his scarf. A curious fact is that if you manage to pause in the right frame, it is possible to see an elderly man going to visit Eren's grave, after Mikasa's death. This elderly man is probably Armin. Who is the boy who appears at the end? Is he a descendant of Mikasa? We do not have this information. This was never revealed by the author. What we can do is speculate that the boy looks like Mikasa, and is wearing a scarf, which could be an indication that he is a descendant of Mikasa's family, but it's really just speculation. Does the tree that appears at the end have another parasite like Ymir's tree? In this case, would Eren be the new founder? We can't say for sure, but I believe that the idea that the manga wants to convey is that yes, there is the possibility of all that happening again, and of there being another parasite in that tree, since the tree seems to be the same as the tree that Ymir entered and came into contact with the parasite many centuries ago. And about the founder, in this case it wouldn't be Eren, the founder would be the first person the parasite had contact with. In fact, the founder wouldn't even be this boy, since in the manga it shows that the first one to enter is the dog, so we would have a founding dog. Will the author of Attack on Titan change the ending? No, this has always been an internet rumor, that the author plans to somehow re-release the ending in a different way, but the opportunity to change the ending of the series would make the ending of the anime different, and it didn't happen. The anime faithfully adapted the ending of the manga, just adding some details for better understanding, but many people to this day are saying that a different version of the ending will come out, but there is no such thing as making a different ending than what already exists, because people didn't like it. So what we have and will probably continue to have, is this ending of the anime and manga, which was not a perfect ending. It could have been much better, it definitely could, but I believe it made sense within what the author wanted to show and address. That's it, guys. These were the topics I covered. I believe I have answered most of your doubts. If you don't understand or have a different point of view on something, leave it in the comments, and if you liked the video, subscribe to follow the next content. Until next time, my people, demonic hugs.